When I was doing my undergraduate education, I was taking a European history course, a survey course, and my professor, she was fairly leftist and somewhat bigoted and sometimes factually wrong, but I learned a lot from her anyway, and I think that experience goes for pretty much everyone. You can learn a lot from people that you disagree with. You may even learn more from them than from people you agree with all the time. But she said something. It was a quote from a professor of hers from graduate school. The quote was, "The revolution, she is like Saturn. She eats her own children." What he meant by that was that the principles of the French Revolution ended up in the hands of people like Robespierre to destroy many of the people who had gotten the revolution started. And he himself was a victim of the revolution. Robespierre was. Well, the left today is engaging, I think, in this same kind of stuff, and I think that there's a reason for it. The principles that the leftists that we have today in the West, basically I'm talking about identity politics and everything related to that, they seem to be doomed to self-destruction or irrelevance if they take their ideas to their logical conclusion. Jordan Peterson himself pointed this out when he said that the LGBTQ plus, this whole kind of thing, it keeps fractionating society down into its constituent components until every possible combination has been made into an interest group. So there's an unfortunate piece of news to go with this claim that I have that the left is going to have to eat itself. In Berkeley, California, a 27-year-old woman who was teaching something about marine life in some sort of private learning institution was stabbed to death by a gender non-conforming person named Pablo Gomez Jr. This person prefers to be called they rather than he or she, and is studying Chicanx, Latinx studies. That's as opposed to Chicano or Latino. The last vowel determines whether it's male or female, so Chicano is male and Chicana is female. And I guess the activists who were coming up with the terms Chicano and Latino weren't really worried about the gender stuff back when they were coming up with this, and they thought that the traditional naming customs would suffice, but now the left has moved past that, so we've got to change it, we've got to update it. This is the continual fractionation. What this killing really does is show that the gender non-conforming person is not always a victim. Sometimes they are the perpetrator of a crime. Sometimes they are the one in the wrong, quite simply. And this does not conform to the narrative surrounding identity politics and the LGBTQ plus, etc., etc., etc. agenda. They're just people like everyone else, and normal people know this. They know that no matter who you are, no matter what color your skin is, or what you think, or what you do, you're just a person like everyone else in many meaningful ways. Now, for the normal person, by which I mean the person who has not been brainwashed by the left into identity politics, when someone of your race, ethnic group, sports team, whatever, commits a crime, you don't have to come out and start making excuses about why they did it or apologizing to people. You shouldn't have to. Just because they committed a crime or even made an achievement, let's say it was the opposite, they did something good, you don't get to claim credit for that or have to apologize for that just because they're a member of the same group. Now, the people who are knee-deep into identity politics do have to deal with those kind of concerns because they've taken all those people and set them up against whoever the oppressor is, which is usually, unfortunately, middle-class white society in America. Let's face it, that's the way it's set up most commonly. Now, the identity politics people or the Hispanics people or the Latinx people, whoever happens to claim this person, Pablo Gomez Jr., they can't actually come out and apologize for their behavior. Because if they did, they would be claiming all of the kinds of activities that people do, and that's not going to help them out. They only want to claim the good stuff, not the bad stuff. So, what they must do, according to their ideology, is come back doubly strong against the oppressor and say that the oppressor led this individual into this bad behavior. So they have to double down, essentially. Unfortunately, that's going to be a losing proposition because they can't just keep blaming everything on the rest of society or the white middle class, right, until the end of time. They just can't do it. Every time they double down, they lose support from some of the people who are not members of their group but do recognize legitimate grievances against minority groups. So the doubling down hurts them. They lose support, and their position becomes more and more extreme over time. The people who were moderates but used to support them fall away. They become more extreme. They double down again, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So this track is already getting kind of long. I'm going to stop here and come back with a part 2 that specifically deals with transsexuals